Hi everyone, and welcome to the last podcast of of the Green Gables. So we will cover the last 10 episodes, so from 41 to 45 and 46 to 50 into different what we call two different tab frame, but we're gonna put it together in one big batch for you. So for now, we're going for 41 to 45.
hmm
And I'm Mario, and here with me, as always, is my man, Hooper.
I'm his man. Hello.
All right. So we know that we have the new adaptation of Shirley, named Anne Shirley, screening as the time of we speak, and I think both of us have watched the first episodes. So you want to talk about that for a little bit before we get into the dispatch of 5 episodes, Hooper?
I guess so. It's not as though I had forgotten that it aired, but I watched these 5 episodes of Green Gables, uh, you know, shortly before we started recording, so that was all that was really on my mind. But I can try to throw my brain back to when I watched Anne Shirley as part of the
Yep.
the rush of spring 2025 seasonal premieres. I enjoyed it. I thought it was nice. Mario pointed out to me that the first episode of that new series covers the events of the first 6 episodes of the original series.
Yeah,
Um,
I do remember that we have like the movie version of the 1979, and that just covered the event of of the 20 minute that we watch in the 2025 version.
have you seen the movie?
I I don't remember honestly. So but I know where's the cutoff is. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that it ends on the when Marilla decided to adopt and Shirley.
Yeah. Although we hear in these 5 episodes that she hasn't officially adopted her,
Yep, yep, yep,
but I guess we'll get to that.
yep.
I like the new Anne Shirley. I think it's probably one of the best series of the new spring season, if I had to say.
Wow.
Um, I like Matthew. I like that show's version of Matthew a lot. He's more. I think he takes to Anne more quickly than he does in the
Yep.
in the original series. That's probably a function of the fact that it had to cover more material in
Mm,
less time. But I think it works out well. The performance is good. I think from the
yep.
voice actor, and he's to arrange the story so that he's like immediately charmed by her instead of initially intimidated. Uh, I
Yep.
think is I think works. It's balanced by Marilla being a little bit more stern and not immediately
Mm,
agreeing to take her in.
yep.
You
I
know,
would say that I like the new version 9 out of 10. The only thing that I cannot get used to is Marilla's new design because I love her old design.
yeah, she's very thin in the new
It, I,
design.
I'm not talking about about teen or fat, but I'm more about like in the old version she's more stern, so she doesn't let her expression show on her face. In the new version, I can see a little bit of like she like her emotion running through her face. I just love the old version much better.
Yeah, in the old version, um, the one that we're about to discuss, you have to wait for like 40 episodes before Marilla starts showing her emotions more freely,
Yeah,
because that's something
yeah,
that you see
true.
a lot of here. Um,
Yeah,
Marilla and
true.
Matthew acting a lot differently, honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
than they have in the past.
All
But
right.
I liked Anne as well, and
Hmm.
her red hair is more red than it is orange. Uh,
Yep.
because I mean her fixation with her hair and her disappointment with it is a big part of her character early on. Um,
Yeah.
and of course, she still gets that famous line, can you call me Cordelia?
Yeah.
Because she wants to be someone other than who she is. But
Yeah.
I it's just such a wonderful like starting point for her, given where her character goes, um, what she learns being a part of Avonlea, and what she manages to accomplish. Having her like deny her own name and hate her own hair and everything at the start, contrasting that with her learning to love herself and love her new hometown, um, is I'm not sure that I'm going to watch the whole Anne Shirley, the title of the new series, but I would love to watch that that evolution play out
Mm.
if
Yep.
I decide to
Yep.
watch the whole thing. I don't know. We'll see how I feel by the time we get to episode 50. By the time we finish off the original 1979 series.
I agree. For episode 41 to 45, we actually see the older Ed now, so the one who not as talkative or expressive. We saw the change of her appearance in the last batch already, but I think this time it came true as well because uh this is the first time that she gonna leave the Green Gables, and everyone, Mariulas and Matthew gonna have to deal with the fact that you know um they're not gonna see her more often.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not easy for them to get used to.
Yeah.
Um, Episode 41 is the send off
Oh my god.
episode, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um,
It's broke my heart, man.
yeah,
it it took half of me, even me without any any children, any baby. I still feel the like this is just so universal, the way that both of them know that this day gonna come where like the baby gonna leave the nest, but they have to deal with that emotionally as well.
yeah, or not deal with it.
Yep. Yep.
I think they do, but throughout this group of episodes, they make regular comments to each other about the fact that they're lonely, or that it's going to be it's going to be a whole year, or it's going to be a whole 4 years, or oh, but she'll come back and visit us on her breaks. Um,
Yep.
that like dominates the their conversation, at least the
Yep.
conversations that we see.
Oh.
We only see the stuff that's relevant to Anne, really, um,
Mhm.
because we are kind of speed running the Queen's Academy chapter
Oh my
of her
god.
life. The narrator is getting in there and informing us of how things are going. We don't really see her studying or even making friends. She just has friends suddenly.
Yeah.
Stella Maynard and what's the
Yeah.
other girl's name?
Oh, don't remember.
I don't remember. I wrote it.
they
I wrote it down somewhere.
they become as girls very quickly. So yeah, I agree with you. Like these 3 4 episodes, we actually see like the episode 41 is like the time where she about to go to Queen's College, and by the time episode 45, she actually already graduated with like with the scholarship,
Right.
and we didn't really see like her actual study at all. We see some of the time that she talked to the new friends, but I think that's about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's okay. I in the last group of five
I
episodes, I was pretty bored with all
mm,
the talk about the entrance exam and whether
right.
everyone from Avonlea would pass, and all that. And episode 45 gets into that, or episodes 44 and 45, I should say, get into that a little more. Um,
Yeah.
in episode 44, all the girls, from Avonlea, Jane, Ruby, and Josie Pye, go to Anne's room at her boarding house, and they talk about how nervous they are, and Anne is the one who's like, oh, I'm not worried about it as long as I have Avonlea and all the beautiful nature there, and and there's something to go home to, and I'll be fine. And I recognize I've learned the joy and the strife. The struggle is part of chasing your dreams, and it'll all be worth it. I was like, who is this character?
Well,
Wasn't she the one
I
who was
think
freaking out so much during the entrance exams? And then
yeah.
episode
Well,
45 happens, and she's too nervous to look at the board, and I was like, ah, yes, that's the Anne I
yeah,
remember.
yeah. I think the scene that you were talking about, she was more of like, let's just enjoy the scenery. Like the summer, the spring just come in the town, and we won't be able to enjoy it because we're so busy studying. So let's just not study at all and come to enjoy the scenery. I think that's more of the vibe that I got from her.
Yeah. Um, she does say that at one point, like let's not study anymore today.
Yeah,
I think
and all the
the real reason
yeah.
for her attitude in that episode is that she's just gone home to Avonlea due to the news that Matthew has had
Yeah,
heart attacks.
yeah.
She finds out from Miss Josephine Barry, and she goes home in the middle of a snowstorm.
Hmm.
Um, so I think her relief at seeing that Matthew is, alive and not bedridden,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
probably flushes out all of her, her nervousness and everything about her academic situation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I kind of see that as well. But back to the episode 41. I
Yes.
think the thing that cut me the most, the deepest, is the narration because we don't get to know much of what Marilla and Matthew think, so we have to depend on the narration and some of the thing that he says. Oh my God, that's really sad. Like like the fact that I think he mentioned that many times that Marilla and Matthew gonna be like when Anne come back to them every weekend, that's gonna be the highlights of the week.
Right.
uh Even before that, even like when Anne's gone, so Matthew take Anne to the cities. I think it's Charles Town. In any case, they say about Marilla's routine. So she clean up the house, she do all the activity needlessly, just to just so that she don't have to think about the sadness. So like by the end of the day, when she actually just about to go to sleep, it's sleep through, and she cry for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's cracked me up. That just so emotional.
I think that's episode 42 when that happens, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But of course, she also gets very teary eyed in episode 41. Um, that's when she goes to town and buys some fabric so that someone or other
Right.
can turn it into like an evening gown. She hears that the other girls are going to have evening dresses, and she
Yep.
wants Anne to have one as well. A big contrast from her attitude in the earlier episodes when she didn't want to spoil Anne at all and didn't want her to be vain
Yep.
and thought that those sorts of outings you know weren't necessary and should be avoided. Now she wants Anne to have it all. Um, and so when Anne comes out wearing this dress and does a little recitation, in contrast to the one that she
Yep.
did in the previous
Mm.
episode 40, this
Yep.
time she performs for an audience of two. And, as she's reciting, Marilla is reminded of when she first came to Green Gables, and she was, like such a wild child,
Mm.
you know, somebody who Marilla wasn't sure that she could love. Um, and now,
Yep.
40 episodes later, uh, as it turns out, they did come to love one another.
Yep.
And just, it's Marilla starts crying, and she says she hardly recognizes the woman in front of her. And then Anne comes forward and says, no matter how old I get or how my looks change or anything, I'll still be your little Anne. Uh,
Yep.
Matthew,
Yep.
as soon as that happens and she like snuggles up to her, Matthew just leaves the room. At first, I thought he was leaving just because like he was uncomfortable because that's part of his character, you know.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
instead, he goes out and delivers like a soliloquy about Anne under the night sky with all the stars in it. Um,
Yep.
and he says that rather than it being a stroke of luck that Anne was sent to them, he chalks it up to divine providence and thanks God
Yep.
essentially, um, saying that it was part of his plan and that he knew that they needed Anne, um,
Yep.
which is an amazing scene. I think if not
Yep.
for meeting Anne, I'm not sure that Matthew ever would have become the sort of person who would think so deeply about his relationships with other people because
Yep.
he's a
Yep.
very
I agree.
private
Perfect.
individual. Maybe private is not even the right word. It's not as though he has things that he wants to keep to himself. He's just kind of solitary. Like he does his work and he lives his life, and that's that. But Anne has shown him another way to think and feel.
Yep.
Um, so for me, that was the highlight of that episode.
Yep.
Matthew's.
Well.
I think of it as Matthew's soliloquy.
Hmm. Yep. Um. We haven't mentioned about the event in the first half of that episode 41
Yeah, that's a little
where
more humorous.
Mrs. Spencer just came and talked about the new adoption, and
Right.
Anne was like, "Oh wow,
Yeah, and well, Anne
tell me
says it's
more."
like wonderful and amazing.
Yep, yep, yep. And I think it's good because we actually hear that from this time we actually see the whole event from the point of view of Marilla. So when Anne and Mrs. Spencer come up to her room, she was like, she was talking to Matthew, and she was like, what you gonna think happened, and all that. So they actually have to think about the possibility that you know Anne's just gonna keep them up
Right.
and go for the new millionaires couples.
Yeah. Um, I think I don't think it's in episode 41 that we learn um, that Marilla has not, officially adopted Anne.
Yep, yep, yep.
I think that comes a little later when she's talking to Rachel Lynde. Um, but I think we kind of knew that already. There's never any
Hmm.
reference to Marilla and Matthew being her parents, I don't think, and
Yep,
certainly there's no scene where she signs any sort of paperwork
yep,
or
yep,
anything. She
yep,
just kind of takes the girl in. I guess the
yep.
adoption process or dealing with orphanages in general was a lot uh,
Yep.
looser, more informal in the past.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
if we had known that, perhaps Miss Spencer's offer that she become the officially adopted daughter of another couple would make a little more sense. But
I agree.
as it plays out in this episode, it's kind of funny when Anne,
Yep,
because it's not going to happen
yep,
uh,
yep.
as an audience member. So when Anne finally says, "Oh, I didn't think you were serious," or "I didn't think that you would take me seriously when I remarked about how
Wonderful
like
that is.
fanciful that would be."
Yep.
Because she could have had like jewelry and dresses and whatever she wanted. Being adopted by a wealthy couple from America. That's another contrast that you can make actually between the wealth described by Mrs. Spencer in this episode and the mention that Marilla makes to Matthew of the bank troubles,
Mhm,
the bank where all
mhm.
their money is held. She like brings that up seemingly out of the blue in episode
Yep.
45. I can't remember the name of the bank, but whatever institution they bank with,
Is
um,
that Syncorp? Let me have a quick.
Suncorp.
That's what just spring my mind, but I might be wrong.
I don't think
Oh, Appy Bank.
Abby. Okay, yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Um, yeah, Marilla and Matthew they are probably on the other end of the financial spectrum, I
I
suppose. I mean,
yeah
they're landowners, right? They own a bunch of land.
yeah.
So,
I think they be able to get by. And I think that was mentioned by Marilla uh, to Anne in one of these episodes. Is that like they not really having making enemies, but they are comfortable with their situation, but they are not rich either to like to buy to just go and buy stuff and waste the money.
are you talking
So
about when
I
she tells Anne like don't buy?
yeah the any gift.
She Anne because Anne buys her a scarf,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
and she
yeah.
meant to get a present for Matthew as well. She says, but
Hmm.
I can't remember what her excuse was. I think she just says, but I didn't,
Yeah.
or there was no
Something like that.
time.
So she was like, I cannot think of anything, I
Oh,
think,
okay.
to give you as a present.
Yeah,
Even
all he
worse.
really needs is his tools and his couch that he comes and lays
and
down on when he gets in the door.
and coming back to them on the weekend. That's what he need.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be the best medicine for him, according to
Yeah.
Marilla. That's what we hear when Anne comes back during the snowstorm in
Yeah.
episode 44.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So yep, I just want to mention that I think that was in episode 42. So in addition with the narration, that I tell a bit too deeply about like how Marilla is Matthew feel when Anne's left. We also see the action of them as well. So my favorite moment is the one where they expecting Anne to go back in on the first weekend, but Anne was like having a chit chat with her best friends outside of the house, and Marilla was just looking at the window to say, "Hey, when we see when we see come here,
Yeah.
they have a lot to talk about, right?" And then she was like, "Oh, she come home." So she hurried to her to the kitchen to where she was doing, and she pretend to like to be serious, and you see the face of Matthew at the time.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my god, I love that.
Yeah, the two of them kind of tease each other about their desperation to see Anne
Yep,
again.
yep.
And they use their voice actors are performing differently in these episodes. Uh, they're they're a little softer, um, a little
Mm,
like more gentle, and they seem to have more, I don't know, like playfulness or enthusiasm injected into their performances. There's
mhm,
I don't know how to describe it exactly. There's a little bit of a growling that they're slipping in to the dialogue.
Crowley.
Yeah, not
Mm,
growling as in like an animal being territorial or anything like that. It's just there's a little bit of a warm growl that you hear in both of their voices. Maybe that's not the best way to describe it, but I can hear in my head the way that their
mm,
voices changed in these episodes when they
Mm,
were
mm,
talking to each other, or even when they were, speaking to Anne. There just seemed to be more of a youth and a fondness there. Um,
yep.
and as the narrator is describing the fact that they're getting older, and they're feeling more lonely in Anne's absence. At the same time, whenever they're talking to each other about her or talking to her, um, you know, by contrast, they seem a little younger.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
like
Yep.
she's a
Yep.
source of youth or of life for them.
Mm, yep. Huh.
Yeah,
You
the
can
the
see
shot
the.
of Marilla in bed
Yep. Oh my god.
crying,
Yep.
and then the pan over to the wide brimmed hat on
Mm,
her
yep.
dresser.
Mm,
That's the hat that had been in Anne's room earlier in the episode when Marilla goes in. So she took that hat out of Anne's room and brought it to her own room
yep.
just for that reminder of Anne to be closer to her. Uh, that makes
Yep.
that scene even more, upsetting.
Yep. And they, I think they really smartly use the match cuts there as well. It's not there, but it's on the first scene where we see the hat. So she was, like cleaning up Anne's table when she saw the hat, and then you kind of see like she tried to move it away until it's match cut to the same table where Anne cleaned up her desk in the new room. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh my god, that was really, really good.
Yeah, maybe the implication is that Anne is also uh,
Processing new, you know.
well, it's
So
that
what
she's also like cleaning um, in
I
order to
think
keep her mind off her like
I
her loneliness or sadness.
maybe I think it's more on the line of like she putting stuff on the table, so like preparing for her stay there. So
Is she
like
still like
it's like,
unpacking at that point? She's just arrived.
mm, I think so, yeah.
Hmm.
So it worked in total contrast with Marilla. So Marilla is more of like, like remembering the past, and see where Anne is like preparing for the future.
Ah, okay.
That's what I get though. Yep.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful.
Yeah, Anne is I think in these episodes we see more of her thinking of Avonlea than she is um like really looking forward to the future. We hear
Hmm.
certainly she, has that new ambition when she finds out about the scholarship.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, her glum mood is kind of turned around. And
Yep.
she talks about how she has, isn't it wonderful to have dreams and ambitions? She gives a like, kind of a little speech about that.
Yep.
Um, but a lot of that is kind of glossed over, because
Yep.
in these episodes, even though Anne is on her own, I think Marilla and Matthew are on screen, roughly as often as Anne is.
I agree.
We flash back to Avonlea all the time, and of course she goes home every weekend, which I wasn't sure was going to be the case. Like I wasn't when she was going off, I thought she was going to be gone for a whole year, and
Yep.
that maybe
Yep.
she would come back only on her breaks. I
Yep.
didn't know that breaks meant every Saturday and Sunday.
Well, but yeah, I think that's the new thing as well because they just got that trends you know in
Connecting like
acting.
Avonlea and Carmody.
Yeah, just the last few episodes. So it's just brand new as well. So it's like something new that this one do new routine. So yeah, well, I actually feel that it's very brave for the show, and I think that makes sense for the show that the focus on. on this chapter is Anne got into the Queen College, but not much about Anne's, but more also more about Marilla and Matthew and how they feel. So it's more about uh, the family connection that is the main focus here,
Yeah,
instead of like Anne like striving for the for her new goal.
right. Yeah, and honestly, that's why I prefer these episodes to the last five that we watched, which were very much about the exam,
Mhm.
the entrance exam, the test.
Mhm.
Um, those were those were like very focused on. I don't know. They weren't very focused on her studies or anything, just her feelings about her studies.
Mhm. Yep, yep,
And that
I
was
can see that.
for these five episodes. That was kind of reserved for the end, right before the results were set to be published. That's when Anne was like, "Oh, doshio, what am I gonna do? I'm so nervous. Jane,
Yep,
you look for me. I can't look. I can't do it."
yep. Oh, that scene where she got congratulated by her friends, and you see the boys are not allowed to enter the room, so they have to hang outside. It's just so great.
Yeah, they. It does seem to be very segmented. I mean, when Anne makes
Mm,
her speech at the graduation ceremony in episode 45,
mhm,
there's kind of a shot from up in the rafters of the building, and all
mhm.
of like all the men are on one side and all the women are on the other.
I see.
Because on
Mhm.
one side, all the colors, it's very zoomed out, so you can't see any details about any of the
Face.
characters. Mostly, you just
Yep,
see the colors of their outfits. And
yep.
on one side, it's like mostly gray and brown and all that, and on the other side, it's very colorful.
Mm.
So
Yep.
men are like this, and women are like this.
But it does come with one sad news, though, is that Gilbert is not gonna study for university,
Yeah, Anne's gonna
and
lose her rival.
yeah,
He
and I
we
just
don't hear
feel
one word out of his mouth, do we? In all these five
no,
episodes, it's just the
no,
narrator talking about him or Diana saying
mm,
his dad
yep,
can't afford to send him to college.
yep. He had to work in a farm or become a teacher of Avondale.
Right.
So yeah, so far I really hope that they're gonna be a resolution to their meeting, because otherwise I think it's just a missed opportunity. I just think that for the last five episodes I would expect her to talk to Gilbert at some point, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
They still number one and number two. They still one of them win the uh Vista, and the other one
Uh-huh.
with and the other one win the scholarship, and they kind of not talk to each other. So and that happened for like how many episodes already? 25, 30 episodes.
What do you mean that they haven't
Just
spoken to one another?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I can probably scroll back and find if I do Control F Gilbert. Oh, that's not how you spell Gilbert. Um, let's see. Episode 31 is the one where Gilbert saves her from the sinking boat.
Okay.
So it's been 14 episodes since then.
And when was the one where she smashes um
The
s-
chalkboard over his
s-
head?
yep, yep, yep.
Oh, that was like episode 14 or 15.
See, so from that time until now,
Right. Yeah,
oh
that's
my god, just
it's been quite a while.
dragging for too long.
I
Yeah.
can't, we're only getting like an overview of what happens at Queen's Academy in these episodes. I can't
Mhm.
imagine that there was, there was no scenario where they would have exchanged words.
Yeah,
You know, like if
I
they got
agree.
put into a situation where a bunch of the Avonlea kids were together, and I don't know, some of them had to go to the
Even if
bathroom or something, and it was just
yeah,
Anne and Gilbert who were left together. Would they have just sat in silence? You know, maybe they
I
would
think
have.
so. Yeah. So there's no development between them whatsoever, and yeah, well, uh,
Well,
all right.
hearing the news from Diana that Gilbert won't be moving on to, what is it, Redmond or Redford College,
Yeah,
and being faced with the possibility of losing her rival,
yeah,
that sort of stuff kind of points in the direction of, you know, her acknowledging to him that he always pushed her to be a better student and stuff. I'm
yeah,
willing to bet that
yeah,
something will come of that.
yeah,
If
yeah,
she
yeah.
leaves
I agree.
for this college and Gilbert is left behind, perhaps there'll be some sort of scene between them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I hope that there's gonna be something, to break the ice. And it's been so long, man. So I just want some resolution for them, you know, happy end for them.
Yeah, we're running out of time for happy endings. We've got just 5 episodes
Yeah,
left.
yep. And yep. I think the only thing that I want to say here in the last of 5 episodes is the main event where Anne had to go back to Avondale to see Matthew, because now she learned about Matthew's heart condition, and she kind of blamed herself as well for not noticing that.
Yeah,
I love the whole thing. Like I love the way that she come unexpectedly to the house, and Marilla just like, we didn't expect you here. And she was like, why? Why? Uh,
why would you
where
hide
is
this from me?
Matthew? Yeah, why you hide this from me? Oh, that, yeah. I love everything, and I even love the way that Matthew handled the whole things. He was like, I'm here, like it's just for a moment, and now I'm fine. But
Yeah, he
and
says
they
I'm
mentioned
still as
about,
strong as ever.
yeah, and they mentioned about, like all the news make their heart uh feel heavy or something, and he was like, that's not good. You only need one person who have the heart condition here.
Right.
I love that. Oh god.
Yeah, the scenes of her like marching through the snow, um,
Hmm.
you know, it's nice that the episode starts with a snowball fight, from what I remember. On the lawn of Queen's
Hmm.
Academy, all the boys are having a snowball fight, and all the girls are like cheering for Gilbert. Uh,
Yeah.
and you get that comment from one of the other boys. I don't know whether it was like Moody or Charlie, but they say, "Boy, it must be nice to be handsome."
Yeah.
You start with the snowball fight, and then the snow. So the snow is like a source of joy and
Hmm.
excitement, and then later it becomes an obstacle.
Yeah.
That the I seem to remember that somewhere in episode 44 there was a remark about like the trains slowing down or not running or being off schedule. Maybe I just imagined that.
So if off schedule, it's been a bit of delay because of the heavy snow. So that's the reason why they do not go back to their home,
Right.
but instead staying in the to study. So yeah.
Right. Um, so despite those delays, I guess by the time Anne learns about Matthew's heart condition and wants to go back home, that's been cleared up because we do see her on the train. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, the snow is still it poses an issue. It's like a something that Anne has to walk through. You
Hmm.
see her. There's a shot of the long road that she has to walk down once she gets to Avonlea just to reach Green Gables because it's not as though anyone has come to pick her up in a horse and carriage.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you see just how much effort she's going to have to put in to be reunited with Matthew. But she pushes through all of that.
Yep. Yep.
So it's a moment where she works in opposition to nature. Usually the show's very, man with nature as opposed to being man versus nature. But
Mhm.
here it's Anne's enemy as she works to get back home.
Yep.
Something a little different. Usually, this being a Takahata series, it's very nature positive.
Yep.
And
We
there's
seem
even
to
speaking of nature positivity, there's actually
yep.
one scene that I want to bring up, and I remember the scene, but not which episode it belongs to. So let me see if I can find it.
Yep.
Um, Maybe episode 42. Yes. So episode 42, you mentioned earlier when you were talking about the match cut to Anne's desk at
Yep.
her new room at the boarding house where she's staying. That she's, preparing for a life in Carmody. In that same episode, shortly after she meets the landlord and everything, and she goes up to her room. There's a scene where like an insert song starts to play, and
Hmm.
she looks out the window of her room as this like nostalgic song is playing because we've heard it before, and then we start to get individual shots of scenery from Avonlea while Anne is still at Carmody, and so it's implied, I think, that those shots are like Anne's memories of Avonlea that she's playing in her head because the scene from her window is more urban isn't really the right word because this show is set 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago.
Hmm.
But there are scenes of a town. There are lines of buildings and street lamps and everything.
Hmm.
So the images that we're seeing of nature of Avonlea are in Anne's mind, and then eventually the show cuts away from that, and you get a shot of Anne looking out the window of her room in Carmody, but the view that she sees is the view from her room at Green Gables. So she
Hmm.
sees all like the pine trees and Diana's house through the window. So she's
Yep.
seeing something that's not really there.
Yep.
I was I was very impressed with
Hmm.
the use of music as a way to ease us into that. It's not, I wouldn't say it's really surreal or anything, but we do see something impossible. We see what Anne is thinking about, what she's fixated on, represented through the impossible view through her new window.
Yep.
So
Eh,
I like that choice.
yeah, it's kind of makes sense as well because as we know that and when she getting older, she not like imagine things that much. She used to always say that uh within the scope of imagination. So she loved to like just to sit down and imagine all the possibilities. We don't see that as much here at all because now she growing up, so this is one of the rare scene that we see, like her actually going through the imagination to her eye, to her point of view. So I think that's a really good scene.
Yeah.
The old Anne is still here.
Yeah. I was also reminded of the old Anne when she thinks to herself, sitting in her new classroom, like, who will I become friends with? She looks over
Yep.
and sees like a
Yep.
beautiful blonde girl, and she's like, oh, maybe I'll be friends with her. She seems like she might have. I don't remember exactly what she says, to be honest, but she's
Yep.
just like looking around the room and seeing the characters who we later will be introduced to as her
As a friend.
yeah, as her friends. Don't see the process, but maybe Anne's social skills are now just so good that she makes friends with them like it's nothing.
Yeah. Well, she top her class, right? So she immediately become a star.
Yeah, I suppose. Maybe that's why Stella Maynard wanted to be her friend so
Be
much.
friend. Yeah.
And oh, Priscilla Grand. That's the other girl's name. I just saw it.
All right. All right.
Yeah,
And I also love the little moment where Matthew and Marilla learns about her score. So and Matthew immediate plan or immediate action is just like go out to go to the next house uh
Diana.
to tell Dinah that that Anne is top that about Anne's score, and then they come up with the idea of like doing the light. Oh my god, that's so good as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Both
another
of them.
scene where Matthew and Marilla seem to be younger than they really are.
I agree.
That idea,
We
of signaling to your friend through the window of your bedroom with a candle. Um, we associate that, I think, with youth
Yep.
due to
Yep.
that being Anne and Diana's method of communication. So the
I'm not
two
sure.
of them, Marilla has the idea to do it, and the two of them go
Yeah.
up and do it together
Yep.
in the room. You see
Yep.
the sibling bond, I think, that
Hmm.
Marilla and Matthew
Yep.
have, even though usually they're all business.
Yep. I'm not sure how Marilla knows about like the five thing. I mean, come immediately. I think it's just like one of the thing where Anne just like keep blabbling about, so
Yeah,
that it's just in her mind. Oh, five is come right away, do that.
yeah,
But yep, I do notice that both of them like the hairs turn gray
yeah. I thought
in
I
in
I thought
this
I
batch of
noticed that
five
as
episodes.
well. Like a different
Yep,
color of paint was used for their hair.
yep, yep. So like you said, when they do this together, they seem younger and more more joyful, more alive as well.
Hmm.
So yep. Oh my god, still a really good batch of episodes.
Yep, and there's only one more to go.
All right, 45 or 50, and they all good. So it's been like 90% are all good now.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh
Yep,
man.
we're nearly there.
Yep.
Um, so the remaining questions are, will Anne um, reconcile with Gilbert? Um,
Yep.
will
What's gonna
Anne,
happen next?
will Anne go off to college?
Yep.
Will she and Diana remain bosom friends forever? Uh, yeah,
And even to the question where the like either Matthew or Marilas is
I don't
is
want to think about
something gonna
that.
happen. Yeah, I don't want to think about that either. But uh, they mentioned a lot about Matthew heart condition
Yeah.
and a little bit about Marila's having a headache.
I don't think they said anything about a headache in these 5 episodes, but
Yeah,
she
she
does
went
mention her
grass now,
eyes.
so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Matthew tries to take Anne's letter out of her hands in episode
Oh,
45 because
that's it
he,
as
he
well.
says, "No, your eyes aren't good enough. Let me read it."
Yeah, and he even jumped ahead when she announcing the result to Dinah,
Right.
and he was just cutting her off. Matthew. Oh my god, I love
I wanted to say it.
that. Yeah. Oh god. My yeah. I think it's just so magnificent that we see them in the thread of 45 episodes. So 41 episodes when Anne decided to leave to leave Avonlea to
Hmm.
study. But we see like the weight in their relationship. We see like all these yeah the clear path of their relationship, so that that when she gone, we feel really sad for both Matthew and Marilla. So that's I think that's a tremendous job that the show did.
Yes, we certainly feel their pain,
Yeah,
their sadness. But now Anne has come back. We've got the whole summer.
for three
Hopefully,
months
yeah. Hopefully, we will get like a full episode at least
Yeah.
representing that summer. It's hard to say exactly how much time that'll be. in terms of
Yep.
episode count, screen time, because
Yep.
we're kind of blazing through the material here.
Yeah.
We're headed for the finish line,
And
but we
yeah, and I don't know the endpoint as well. I don't know like what sort of age and we'll get when we when we finish the series. So it's gonna be a something that I will find out in the next 5 episodes, the
yeah.
last five.
Yeah, and we'll get back together to discuss these next 5 episodes. I think next month we're doing that.
Yep, I think so.
But for everyone listening to this, on
It's
YouTube,
it's gonna be it's gonna be the next 5 seconds.
that's right. So we'll move on to episodes 46 to 50 and finish
Yeah,
up Anne of Green Gables.
cool. All right,
See you then.
right for now. And this is our second half, covering the last 5 episodes of Anne of the Green Gables, the 1979 version. That's including episode 46 to 50. And the ball has dropped for these 5 episodes.
Yeah, the ball that was hanging over our heads
Oh God.
for so
Yep.
many weeks and months.
Uh, like part of me just feel like this gonna be happening, but man, when it's dropped, it just also feels so sudden, and it's all go down to shit. and, and the story goes on, and it's kind of just end there. So, all right, what's your thought
My thoughts on what?
on the whole things, on the whole experience?
The whole experience, as in my experience of these 5 episodes, are all 50.
Yeah. All right, right. Just these 5 episodes.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess uh, episode 46 I thought was not too eventful. Of course, there
Right.
was Matthew's trip to the bank to see Mr. Russell,
Yep.
which was big time foreshadowing. And I said it wasn't too eventful, but the main development, I guess, on an emotional level, was Matthew's declaration that Anne was his daughter.
Yep.
And I'm not sure. I mean, when he first said that, I thought to myself, has he ever said that before? Like, has he ever used that word or stated it so plainly? You are my daughter. I don't
I don't
know.
think so.
You don't think so? Okay. I mean, it would make
Yeah.
sense if he hadn't, because then this is like the moment. It makes it bigger by comparison, I guess. The magnitude of his statement is bigger.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll go along with that because I wasn't sure. And I didn't feel like rewatching 45 episodes to confirm whether he had or hadn't said it in the past.
Yep.
Of course, right after he says that, that triggers the death flag, and he passes on. And just episodes 47, 48, and 49, I was a wreck watching them. I was like,
Yep.
oh, that was very, very emotional. And I guess if I'm recapping my thoughts on all of them, episode 50, I'm not sure about. After all after the death and the burial and Anne's self-sacrifice in deciding to care for Marilla in
Mhm.
the 3 episodes preceding the finale. The finale was like much more low key by comparison.
Mhm.
And right after the final scene where Anne sits at her window in her bedroom in the only real home she's ever had, and thinks to herself, I'm perfectly content with the decision that I've made, and all's right with the world. God's in his heaven. All's right with the world. I wasn't sure about the ending. I didn't have like a strong feeling about it, like I did about what had come before with those earth
Mhm.
shattering moments. So I'm still sitting with it. I don't know how I really feel yet about episode 50. Um,
I kind of agree with you on that. It just kind of end. It just like we get into the specific timeline of end in the Green Gables, and we don't have the full picture, but it's also enough just to like we can just imagine what happened next as well.
there's a little
Because
miniature
I
montage of her future with when it has like the
was it
leaves of the trees kind of bordering the frame,
right.
and we see
Oh,
her
is it?
sitting on the hill with Gilbert, with each of them with books
Yeah.
on their laps like they're studying together, and we see her with Diana, Ruby, Jane, Mrs. Allen. We see her teaching in the Avonlea schoolhouse.
Or is it just her
Um,
imagination?
well, I would say it can be both. Like it's her vision of what the future will hold, but I think those are also probably the things that take place in the sequel book, which is called Anne
Hmm.
of Avonlea.
I see. Hmm.
I kind of want to buy
Okay.
the book and read it
Yeah.
because
Um.
I don't feel closure after episode
Yeah.
50. Um,
And I think that is a little point, right? It just life goes on
well, I mean
for Anne and for everyone.
that's true. And there are more and books, so it really is like a life goes on type
uh,
of. You know how anime has a reputation of like their series being advertisements for the manga, and like they won't
yeah.
resolve, and then they'll be like, read the manga to find out what happens next. Anne of Green
Yeah.
Gables did it first.
Oh, damn. We
Buy the
spent the
next
whole
Anne book to
year.
find out what happens.
Oh boy. Um. Yeah, but I do have that feeling, but I do have the feeling that whatever decisions he makes, it will be all right as well. So it's kind of the point that the show wanted to make.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm not totally satisfied by it. But that could.
Yeah.
I finished watching it today. I watched all five of these episodes today, so
Oh,
it's still very fresh
okay.
for me.
Right, right,
Um,
right, right. Yep. All right. We can go back to episode 46, 47. Just go through the motion. I also feel that Matthew passed away is very quick and sudden, even though that we kind of expected it. So I think it's kind of like a really good decision. Like there's no hangover. He just drop and pass away.
yeah, yeah. Due to shock
You're
from
just
the
shocked.
article in the newspaper about
Yep.
Abbey Bank.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Poor
Boy.
Matthew, man. I mean, one of his last decisions in his life was such a poor one, such a an ill-advised
Yeah.
one to keep his money in the bank and to be hoodwinked by
Yeah.
Mr. Russell.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Mr. Russell doesn't look at all remorse about his action.
well,
We
we don't
see
see
him
him
in
afterwards, right?
is it? I think he's we see him in the funeral. Maybe him or one of the
Do we
other person,
really?
but yeah, I think I recognize him, but I might be
Oh,
wrong. They all look the
damn.
same, all the gentlemen,
How
and they
dare
were
he
just
show
like,
up, dude?
a- and then he was just like Matthew was such a good person by that.
I remember somebody saying that Matthew was such like a good lad or
Yeah,
something along those
I think
lines.
that's I think that was him. So
No, I don't
we
think so.
can.
The guy who said that had gray hair.
All right.
I remember that that character, whoever he was, had gray hair, and I don't think Mr. Russell had gray hair during the meeting at Abbey Bank in episode 46. Um, maybe I'm wrong, but dude, the balls on that guy. If that really was him, he killed Matthew.
Well, he didn't know that, right?
Well,
Mm.
he knew that the bank was going under,
Oh
and he
man. Yeah.
deceived him. I think in order to secure his account, to so that he wouldn't withdraw the money.
Yeah. But is that exactly what happened when the
Yeah.
bank just go bankrupt? You lost all the money. Is that like there's no kind of security, no kind of insurance?
I
Let's cover
honestly,
that.
I don't really know. I don't do a lot of heavy duty banking. My direct deposit
Yeah,
goes into my bank account, and I don't invest either, which is foolish, I'm
right.
sure. But I don't like play the stock market or do any of that stuff. I'm financially ignorant.
Yeah,
Big banks, I'm sure they have protections. In the U.S., the recession in 2008,
yeah,
banks like the government bailed out several banks because they were collapsing.
right,
But
right, right,
perhaps it
right.
doesn't work that way in rural Canada in the 19th
In
century.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, all right. Um, I feel bad for Anne, but I also feel really bad for Marilla because
Oh, of course.
yeah, it understandable, and even even one of her friends saying that she becomes soft or she becomes senior or something like they use an very specific word to say that she's not rough anymore, and yeah, and also the
I
news
know what
that
you're talking about. I can't remember what word it is, but
yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the narrator who says it, isn't it?
it's not the narrator actually, it's the it's her friend who come along. All
Rachel
right,
Lind.
is that Rachel Lynch? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When she talked to her husband,
Oh,
so
yes. Yes. Okay. And
so
is that the first time we ever saw her husband on screen?
I think it's the first time.
Yeah, I had the same feeling, which is very weird.
Yeah. Oh,
um, yeah. I mean, Marilla was introduced as such a stoic presence, and then of course, even after she opened up to Anne and kind of took on a more like motherly role in the show, she still was not a very emotional
mm,
character. But just in the last 10 episodes, Anne leaving
yeah.
to go off
Mhm.
to Queen's College and leaving Marilla behind, and Marilla like being racked with grief
Yeah. Yeah.
at that.
Yeah.
And then follow it up with these episodes where her brother, like the person she has spent all of her life with,
Yeah.
they grew up in this childhood home together, and the two of them stayed there.
Yeah.
They dedicated their lives to Green Gables, and he passes away
Yeah. Yeah.
so suddenly. Like, oh,
Oh, and remember that? Remember like when he first having a stroke, and she was like, "It happened before, so he will hang in there," you know. Oh
right,
God. And this was the first time that Anne had seen Matthew like that. So,
right, yeah.
oh,
The way that Anne processes it is interesting because she doesn't like the tears won't
mm,
come, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
until she has that vision in episode 48. So episode 46 is where Matthew calls Anne my daughter,
yeah.
and he says he would rather have her than 12 boys,
Voice.
which is
Yeah,
every day that passes, that statement becomes more significant because Matthew becomes less and less physically able, and the need for hired help for for men
yeah, yeah,
becomes greater and greater.
yeah.
So him saying that
It's a
at the end of his life when he's the least able to work in the fields and they've had to hire Martin, like bring on a hired hand,
Martin. Yeah,
is
it's a
all the more impactful.
it's also the first time that we see Martin. To be honest,
Yeah, I think so.
before we have Cherry, and I don't see the end of Cherry, but I saw and Martin was just kind of dead, you know.
Yeah,
But it's alright.
yeah. They maybe they hired him while Anne was away at Queen's College,
Yeah,
Queen's
yeah,
Academy.
yeah,
Um, oh, I'm so sad right now.
yeah.
Why did I bring up
And
episode 46 again? There was a reason for it, but I can't remember it.
uh, yeah, something about he calling her his daughter.
Right. Okay. So yes, he calls her his daughter, and then so episode 47 is the one. It starts like cheerfully with all of them doing chores together,
Yeah,
and then he reads the newspaper and he has the heart attack and passes away, and all that. Um, Episode 48 is the one where the funeral arrangements actually take place, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
Um, and so episode 48, yeah, in terms of Anne's grief, the tears won't come for her until she has that vision in her room. So we see a repetition of Matthew's um, uh, you know, referral of Anne as his daughter. She sees that in her mind's eye in her bedroom. Uh,
Hmm.
and then it, I don't know if you remember, but in episode 42, that's the one where Anne is at Queen's Academy, or rather, she's at her boarding house, her like apartment in Charlottetown, and she's
Hmm.
lonely, she's homesick, and she sees through the window of her boarding house room the scenery that she would see from her window at Avonlea at Green Gables. So the show kind of plays with reality in that way. It does something similar at the end of episode 48 because she sees in her mind's eye, she sees Matthew calling her his daughter. And then as he turns and walks out of frame, um, it shows him under the stars like he was in episode 46. So even though Anne is in her room, Matthew is somewhere else. Like they're in two different places as Anne is experiencing this flashback. And I thought that was just like in episode 42, and I was so impressed with that like storytelling device. I
Hmm.
loved the way that episode 48 actually brought that emotion out of Anne after she re-experienced her father calling her his daughter.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. I have nothing to add to there. Um, man, how about the funerals?
Uh, well, at the funeral, I like the use of hymns. I
All
mean,
right. Yep.
how many anime have you seen where there's like a graveside service
Oh,
and the preacher says some like quotes from Psalm 23 or something, and then that's it, and everybody like just leaves, and
mm,
there's like no fanfare to it really. There's like a little quote from the Bible, and then everybody leaves behind the grieving family. I much prefer, and I mean,
this one.
Anne of Green Gables is a very different kind of story than
Mm,
most other anime, but I much
yep.
prefer to see like the members of a community like Avonlea coming together um, in in like a holy place to
Right.
sing to God, uh, in thanks for Matthew and his life. That's just
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
so much more significant, than I think a lot of memorial scenes are. Not just in anime, but in general,
Mm,
because
yep.
we've had like there's been so much history with the character and with this place, this town. Um, so I thought that was even though the even though it wasn't lip synced, the characters' mouths are moving as they're all singing, and it does not match even remotely. But
Well,
that's the sort of thing you can overlook. Or I shouldn't speak for everyone, but it didn't really bother me. It just kind of amused me.
yep. Do you notice that in the gravestone of Matthew, his actual name is not actually Matthew, but but other names I think it's a name from his father, and
Thomas.
the Thomas, and the year is actually kind of blur out as well.
Yeah, so this
It's
I was confused by this, so I did a little bit of googling. Apparently, and I mean this isn't fact or anything, but it's someone's conjecture. In
yep.
Japan at the time of Anne of Green Gables production, there was a popular Japanese to English dictionary that
Right.
listed Thomas as the real name for people named Matthew. Like Matthew is a nickname for people called Thomas.
Is it
So the art
so?
director, referencing this dictionary, put the name Thomas on his gravestone and also messed up the year because sometimes you see it says 1831 as the year of his death, when it's supposed to be
Yeah.
1881.
Yeah, because I think at one point I see 1881, but most of the time it's 1831, and he
Yeah.
was like 18 years old. I was like, nah. But he was not 18 years old. Oh my goodness.
I when I first saw Thomas Cuthbert, I thought it was like Matthew and Marilla's sibling who died early, who died,
Right.
as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be like the show's way of cluing us into some
Huh.
unspoken tragedy in their past. And now Matthew has gone to be with his brother. And I was like,
Right.
"Whoa, this is like a bombshell." And then I Google it, and apparently they just messed up.
Oh my God.
uh, oh well.
All right. Thomas and Matthew, there's nothing in similar. But, well, all right.
No, I don't believe so. I
Oh
mean,
my
those are
God.
both like really old European names,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which don't have any relation to one another. But at least Anne plants that white rose at his grave so that it can grow and obscure the name and the incorrect year. And
Yeah.
then our
Yeah.
problems will be solved because then you won't be able to see it. You'll just see the rose that she plants.
Oh God. Yep. And on top of that, we hear about Marilla's story with Gilbert's father, where
Yes,
they
John
actually,
Blythe.
yeah, well, and it actually very similar to the one that Anne's having now. So I actually kind of like it the way that they put their like their quarrel back. Um, they put it behind in the episode 50, so it's kind of like the end of their strained relationship and the start of a new beginning
Right,
in the last one, in the last
right,
episodes.
right. Yeah,
Okay,
it
we
really
talk for
does.
half an hour.
Yeah. That was interesting because
Yeah,
we see that conversation that they have at the gate leading into Green
yeah,
Gables from Marilla's
yeah,
point of view. And there's a
yeah,
detail that she can't recognize who it is because her eyesight is failing.
yeah,
That's why she
yeah, yeah,
asks, "Who was that?"
yeah.
Even though 2 episodes beforehand she had remarked on how handsome Gilbert was turning out to be, like his father.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly.
So
Oh,
from Marilla's point of view, that's how we experience that scene. And it doesn't seem to us to be particularly long. But then when Anne
mm,
comes in, Marilla says, "You were out there chatting for half an hour." So we see it from Marilla's point of view, but in terms of the time that
yeah,
that elapses, we feel it from Anne's point of view. I I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
I don't know if that contrast was intentional.
I think it's
Um,
intentional, and I love it. I love the way they do that.
hmm,
Mm,
yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, the fact that Anne, forgives Gilbert, and it's he's like, "This is a start of a beautiful friendship," or whatever less cliched thing he says.
yeah,
Uh, Saving it for the final episode, yeah, it really does lend credence to the idea that this is the show's vision for itself. Like this is a new
mm,
beginning,
yeah,
um, even though yeah, maybe it's not even supposed to feel like an ending.
yeah. Well, I just feel that like she gave up her scholarship because of that special circumstances. That scholarship should have come to uh come to
Gilbert,
Gilbert, right? Should have,
was
right?
he the number two student on the like?
He won the other awards. He won the Pista thing for.
Oh right,
So
yeah,
yeah, they are basically number one and two.
okay.
And
Well, I mean, I've done this actually. I won a $1,500 scholarship at a Pokemon tournament,
right, wow.
and I didn't use it. Rather, after I graduated college, I exchanged the scholarship for its cash value.
I see. Wow. Well
So you
then.
can do that. Anne should be able. Well, again, I don't know the financial rules of late 19th century rural Canada, but
Yeah.
it's possible that Anne will be able to take the cash value of the scholarship and
Mhm.
use it to support herself and Marilla.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Really hope so. I kind of like the fact that now Marilla is more leaning on Anne. You know that before they tend not to tell Anne anything, just too afraid that Anne gonna be uh affected by that. Now that
Mm.
it's more trust from Marilla to Anne that she can tell Anne basically everything, especially her situations, so that Anne can have like a fair assessment to um and even like to make her decision. So yeah, well, I'm just not sure if I like what Anne decide. Like I would be with everyone else to say that it's a
Mm.
foolish of her to do that, even though that we
Yeah.
can see her point of view, and even though that she confident about that decision.
Yeah, that's also part of why I'm conflicted about the final episode.
Yeah, dang.
Because in episode 49, when she tells Marilla what her plan is, of course, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Um, but in episode 50, the reality of that decision sets in. And I don't, you know, she's
and see,
demonstrated her intelligence and her achieving of the goals that she set for herself.
yeah,
And, um, and now she's taking a different path. Like she says, there's a
a
bend
bend,
in the road
a
and
bend in
she's
the
going
road.
another
Yeah,
way. And people are upset, like in the final episode, Aunt Josephine tells her niece Diana or her grandniece, one of those.
niece. Yeah,
She tells her, go upstairs and signal for Anne with the candle and get her over here. I have to talk to her.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
And and she doesn't mince her words. She said exactly um what she thinks. So it's also very good from her.
yeah, and in addition to that, Anne also gets letters from Stella Maynard
All
and
right.
Miss
Yeah.
Stacy,
Yeah.
her former teacher, and both of
Yeah.
them are like, "Congratulations on receiving the scholarship. I'm so happy for you, and you're gonna do
Yeah.
great things in your future." Stella says, "Oh, I got in too, so we're gonna be together. When can I pick you up at the station?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you know the the conversation with Aunt Josephine and those letters, and any other character who would express to Anne their I don't know disappointment with her decision.
Yeah.
Um, that's those are all like they're
Legit.
just reminders. They're reminders
Right.
of the other road that Anne took. That she followed the bend and didn't
Yeah.
keep charging straight ahead.
Yeah.
And that I don't, there's like room for regret at the end.
Yeah.
It's not really like I don't know. It's not a happy ending.
Oh boy, we watched the whole 50 episode for this.
Oh, but I mean episodes. I'm not sure how I feel about episode 50, but by no means was it a poor installment.
No, no, no.
Um,
It's not.
and
Yeah.
and of course, in addition to I think a pretty good conclusion, all things considered. There's also the incredible 3 episodes that come before it. Like,
Mm.
oh man, it's just
Yeah.
so tragic. And then
Yeah.
Anne like lifts her and both herself and Marilla out of despair, with her decision to stay, and she expresses in, as only she can,
Mhm.
her contentment with the decision that she's made, and that even if this is one of the things she says during the final scene in episode 50, even if the path that she now walks on is narrower than before, she's sure that she'll be able to experience all the more beauty because of it. Like she's sure that flowers will grow on either side of the path that she walks down it, and she's sure that staying in Avonlea she'll be enriched, as a result of her decision. Um, even
Yep.
as she says, also in episode 50, as she's kind of narrating this letter that she's writing. Let me see if I can find the exact phrase because I know I wrote it down. She's she kind of near the start of her narration of that letter. She acknowledges that her horizons have closed, perhaps too much, as a result of her decision. So she,
Right.
as she's writing to Stella or to Miss Stacy or to both, she says, I know that a part of my life that I might have grasped like with my own hands is now cut off. Um,
Mm.
but she, she's content with her choice. I mean, Aunt Josephine is a pretty formidable presence, and she doesn't wither under her questioning in the least. She does seem very sure of herself.
Yep.
Um,
Oh boy. All right. Yep. I guess we're gonna have to learn if she all right or not by the second book of Anne of the Green
yeah,
Gables.
yeah, Anne of Avonlea,
Anne
and
of Avonlea.
I have seen speculation online that the current Anne Shirley
We'll go
series
forward.
will go beyond the events of the first book and into the second. Yeah, and
Wow.
so I'm interested, in maybe picking it back up. Not right away. I'll
Mm-hmm.
probably save it for like the end of the year or
Yeah.
later, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just want to know more. Like, what's gonna happen next?
Wow. That's gonna be very interesting. Yeah. Yep. Hmm. All right. You want to answer my big questions that I always raise?
Oh, I know what question it is.
All
I mean,
right.
I have more to say about the show as well, but if you want to get into the question,
You, you,
we
you,
can do
you.
that.
No, no. You can talk more on what's on your note.
All right. Well, here's one thing that I have a question for you.
Right.
Did
Yep.
you see the advertisement for the Adventures of Tom Sawyer
Yep.
at the end
I
of the
I did
show?
see that. I did see that. Yes.
Nice.
And I was like, oh my god, this is not what I'm expecting for the next episodes.
Yeah. So I went online and I saw that. So Anne of Green Gables' final episode was December 30th, 1979.
Yep. Yep.
The very next week, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer debuted January 6th, 1980. So my assumption
Right.
is that it took over its time slot on TV.
Yep. 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 That,
Um, and
that would be my
like
assumption as well.
I kind of want to watch The Adventures of Tom Sawyer now. I mean, I know it's not Takahata directed, but I'm sure that there's plenty of enjoyment to be had there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe I'll watch that someday. I'll
All
always
right.
associate it with Anne of Green Gables, I think, because
Yep.
of the experience of seeing the ad for it after. Um,
Oh boy.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, I was talking earlier about hymns and how how nicely I think the musical accompaniment contributed to the story surrounding Matthew's passing.
Yep.
Uh, I wanted to bring up so there's one hymn in episode 47 and there are two during the memorial service in episode I no so there's one in 47. The Wake at Green Gables, there's a hymn there, and then there's also a hymn at the memorial service at the church in episode
Right.
48. So the one I want to talk about specifically, I recognize the hymn from episode 48, "Nearer My God to Thee." I've sung it before
All right.
in church. But the one I want to talk about is episode 47 because the hymn is called "In Lonely Mountain Ways." So it plays, looking here at my notes, they say that it plays to start the second half of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So what would the timing have been? What was on screen in the second half of episode 47? This is after Matthew has already passed. But do you remember like what after the show comes back from the commercial break in episode 47? What's happening there?
Oh, it's hard to say. It's kind of like everything blending all together at the
Yeah.
moment. Um, I cannot recall.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up. Actually,
Yeah,
those of you listening on YouTube, you're gonna have to give me about 20 seconds here,
all
and
right.
you might hear the clicking of my mouse as I navigate to the folder where Anne Shirley the Anne of Green Gables episodes are. Okay, I've double clicked it now, but for some reason my computer doesn't want to play it.
All right. I can do it
Oh, here
quickly.
we go. Here we go. Why can't I find the scene? Here it is.
It's the actual funeral.
So the camera's panning over Green Gables, and you
Mm-hmm.
hear the chorus singing the hymn.
Right.
Okay. So then it pans over Anne of Green Gables, and then you see scenery surrounding the home, and then it cuts in, and there are people observing Matthew in his casket.
All right.
So I guess the wake extends from episode 47 to 48. But
Right.
in episode 47, as people are gathered around his body, the hymn that plays is In Lonely Mountain Ways. And I looked it up, and it is not a translation of an existing English hymn. In fact, it's an original by someone named Tsugao Nishimura. So it was
Oh, really?
written, it seems, by a Japanese Christian.
Wow.
And the the lyrics make reference to. Well, I'll just read a portion of them here. They read, "My journey may be long, the pathway rough and steep. Sufficient for each day my song, my way the Lord does keep. And though when evening falls, a stone my pillow shapes, the vision of our kingdom calls, and here a Bethel makes." So I was curious about those lyrics. Um,
Oh,
I did a little Googling, and apparently what they reference is a story from the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, where
oh,
Jacob, who I think is Abraham's grandson, if I'm not
right.
mistaken, Jacob is traveling back to the land of his mother. They've been away in another country or another place, and he's traveling back to his roots, the place where his mother was born. And on the way there, as he's traveling, the journey is long, so he has to stop and sleep. And he puts a stone under his head to sleep, as referenced in the lyrics. A stone my pillow shapes.
Right.
And he has a vision at this place of a stairway stretching from earth up to heaven with angels walking up and down the stairway. And
Yep.
when he wakes up, he is overwhelmed by this dream that he's had, and he decides to call the place Bethel. So this is referred
Right.
to in the latter verse of the hymn. And though when evening falls, a stone my pillow shapes, the vision of our kingdom calls, the vision of the stairway that he sees, and here a
Mm.
Bethel makes. So I was amazed by this, looking this up, because that means that in writing this episode, whoever wrote it considered the relevance of this hymn to Matthew's death, because
Right.
it's as though he's ascending, from the
Yep.
staircase from earth to
Yep.
heaven.
Wow.
Um, and
Wow. Very.
I wanted to mention that especially because it's a hymn originally written by a Japanese person. So
Yeah.
its selection for the show has particular meaning.
Very interesting. Wow. Thank you, Uber, for your research.
Yeah, I would say that it's a show worth doing research for.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Are you tearing up at the moment?
A little bit.
All right. Yeah, it it
But
is a good
I'm
show.
good.
It's
I'm good. If you want to ask that question now, the question that we both know is coming, I'm ready.
all right. All right. Yep. So what do you prefer between this one and Heady?
Um, I think, well, first of all, when we watched Heidi, it was 2019 or 2020, something like that.
Right. Yep.
And of course, we rewatched 13 episodes of Heidi for our best of the pre 1990s anime tournament,
Yep.
where Heidi took first place and Anne took third place.
Yep.
And it probably
Yep.
would have taken second if it hadn't been knocked out by Heidi
Yep.
in the
In the
semifinals.
final. Yep. Yep.
So I would have to. I mean, I haven't viewed Heidi as a complete work in 5 or 6 years, but I'm going to have to say I think Heidi, Girl of the Alps, is my preference.
Oh. All right. Wow. I would say
How
that
about you?
for my. I would say that for myself, Heidi. The the events where she go to the cities is a bit more inconsistent compared to ants who have like the whole like the whole 50 episode that we watched really read solid from start to finish, and it's that one heck of a emotional last few episodes. So for now I leaning more into ant than Heidi.
Mm. All right. Then we are on opposite sides of this issue.
All right. Yep. No, I'm good with
Um,
that.
you know, I think Anne is tremendous. I would have
Yep.
to say it's one of my favorite anime I've ever seen. Um, now I personally I don't think the ending is quite as like the final episode is quite as strong.
Yep.
Um, you perhaps you could say the ending as a whole with Matthew's death and Anne's self-sacrifice um, is is stronger. But I think Heidi left me with the feeling of like fulfillment. It was more complete.
Hmm.
And also, the main strike that I have against Anne of Green Gables, I think, is not the Queen's Academy um, episodes, but before
Mm.
that, the the entrance exam for Queen's Academy, where it's all about like Anne being
Right.
so nervous and studying
Right.
for the
Right.
entrance exam, and
Yep.
everybody else being so
Right.
nervous too. Uh, that I was I was disappointed by a little string of episodes in there in the late 30s, like 37,
Mm.
38, 39, something like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Uh, but I mean, it's a 50 episode series, and if it's really just like 3 episodes that I didn't care for, then that's an incredible batting average.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and everything from like I would say the first 35 episodes probably like not a single miss. It was just home run after home run.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy, we end up on a really good episode. So I would say that I would love for people to keep watching the classic stuff because like there are a lot of gems that in this one just don't comment about like the state of the current anime. Just watch the old stuff. Spend more time on the old stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Plus there's Marco as well, the third of Takahata's World Masterpiece Theater
Right.
shows. That also
Yep.
has incredible promise. The two of us have only seen what is it, 16 episodes so far, with 3 more to come.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but that is also turning out to be an incredible work. So I wouldn't say that you should go into older older Cell era anime, especially from like the 70s, expecting everything to be like Anne of Green Gables. Um, that's clearly a cut above. But yeah, you should, if you're curious, you should watch some old stuff
Yep. All
because
right. So
there may be something wonderful waiting for you if you do.
yep, I agree 100%. All right. I think that's it for us for the whole end of Green Gables. You should
Yeah,
watch it.
yeah, and I'm thankful for the new Anne Shirley series, um, because even if it's not Anne of Green Gables, even if it is very different in its visual presentation and the pace of its storytelling, it's still going to expose more people to these characters and this world, and it may even prove to be a springboard for some people to go back and experience the 1979 anime. Um, so I think I'm glad that it's airing. I think it has its place.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I agree.
and we'll see if it adapts, stuff from Anne of Avonlea. I will probably be watching it.
Yep. And based on what we watched in the first episode, there's a lot of promising on the new version as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, including an OP and ED directed by Naoko Yamada.
Oh, wow, right. Dang.
And I think the show is pretty good in its own right, too, as you say.
Yep.
So, um, yeah,
All right. Give it a try, guys.
yeah. Next up, you want
Yep.
to tell people what we're going to be watching for our next classic series?
Yep. So we're gonna watch Erin. Uh,
Yes.
I don't know the full English name. The Beast
Yeah,
Slayer.
it's like Aaron the Beastinarian or
All
Aaron the
right.
Beast Tamer, something like
Yep.
that. The Japanese title is Kemono no Soujo Erin.
Yep.
Um, so
Yep.
that's a
Looking
show
forward to
that
that.
will be another of our high ranking tournament series. One of these days, maybe we'll do a podcast episode where we kind of go back over, review the tournaments that we've done. I think that
Sound
might
good
be
to me.
interesting to talk about
Yeah.
how the tournaments went and whether we have any like regrets or whether we agree with the way things shook out.
Yeah,
Because
that
they've
sounds good
been
to me.
pretty educational, I think, taking us
Mhm.
back through the history of anime.
All right, guys. That's it from us for now. We will come back for more.
Yep, you'll hear from us again soon.
All right. Bye bye.
Adios.